Moshi Moshi.
Hello,
I'm Zeb Ramsbotham,
and I'm Annie Ramsbotham.
and we're the Rambling Ramsbothams.
Our journey might be rambling, but we hope this podcast isn't.
And today it probably won't be because we have a plan.
Yeah, because so we don't get too rambly, but we're starting with a story about one of the craziest things that I think happened to us so far. I think it's crazy.
Really? The whole time we've been in Japan?
I think out of my life, it's such a weird thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very weird coincidence.
So, you remember how last week, actually, we forgot to talk about it last week?
It was 2 weeks ago. So when we were doing, it was the episode where we were talking about our race at Mount Antake, where we were over in Nagano. And we were talking about that.
In the Kiso area.
Yeah, so we were talking about that. And if you made it to the very end of the episode, you'll know, because we mentioned it then. I found a drone in the Atara River Valley.
Yeah, like someone had been flying a drone and crashed it into the river.
Yeah. And just at the very end of the episode, we were asking each other, hey, is there anything else? Like, no, I don't think so. I think that's all. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot, I found a drone. And so then we were joking, like, oh, if you crashed a drone in the Atara River Valley, let us know.
Okay, so the drone was in terrible shape. Like, we took it home and you had to shake sand out of it. And so I didn't think that the card was going to be... I didn't think we could get the card out because we couldn't get the battery out, let alone read the card. So Zeb didn't have the morning of work, and I went out on a run, and I got back, and he had been working that morning on, like, getting the card out. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I found it, and it works. And I thought he was talking about some, like, lost audio from the podcast that we had messed up. But he had figured out the drone... like looking at the photos, and so we're looking through them, and at first the photos are of like a Japanese family's trip to Italy. It's kind of creepy to like look through someone else's camera roll in a way,
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good reminder that if you have electronics
to reformat your cards.
Yeah, just every now and then make sure you have all the data off of it and then reformat your card.
Well, they hadn't used the camera very much, but there was photos periodically for a year on the card, and so it went to Italy and then it came back.
Because I think the first one was like 2000. It was a while.
Okay, but that's not even the craziest part. The craziest part is that we're looking through the photos, and Zeb was like...
Well, I asked Annie. I had a video, and I was like, oh, like, what do you think about this video?
And it zooms in on this person who's flying the drone, and next to the person is someone we recognize. We knew someone in this lost drone footage, which is it's like The Matrix or something.
Yeah, it was definitely weird. A small world moment. But, yeah, because it was, I guess I was being nosy. I didn't really have a reason to, like, look through the drone footage. Yeah. Other than I did think, I was like, well, the memory card worked, so...
we were curious.
Maybe I can see, like... who, and I had the idea in my head that every now and then you see like one of those dumb posts online that's like, I found this camera in a ditch, and then
like a Reddit post where it's like, can anyone help me find the person in this
photo? Or someone like develops film from a thrift store or something, and they're like, I found this camera and I got the film developed, like, whose family is this? And then there will be someone in the comments like, that's Jimmy. And
but we didn't even have to go that far. We just
yeah, this guy lives like down the street
in Uchinada.
Like, in Uchinada.
And where we found the drone was 4 hours away in the mountains in this river, and it had been crashed, I think, like 3 months ago.
Yeah, because I mean, if you don't know about it and you're taking pictures, most cameras store metadata on the photo, which includes things like GPS locations, so like where the picture was taken. And then also it'll, of course, have like the date and time and everything.
Yeah, which is a little creepy because we could like see so much.
That's why you have to like format it.
I mean, ideally you don't crash a drone into the river. Well, so it was unlucky for that guy.
Yeah. But so yeah, we like just looked into it and figured out who it was, and I knew that he had crashed it back in like it was like March.
Well, you just texted.
So it's been in the river for like 3 or 4 months. Now, so. But
you just texted it our friend and
yeah, well, I messaged him a photo on Instagram, and I was like, "Hey, man, is this you?"
And so he had been visiting his friend in the Kiso area, which is why he was down there. But yeah, I don't like even in a small town America. We both grew up in small towns in North Carolina. That kind of thing wouldn't have happened. So it's so like chance. I feel like to find a camera in like a half day's drive and then know people on the camera roll.
Yeah, it's just such an interesting story too, because I'm guessing that he bought it like secondhand from someone.
Yeah.
And then it's a bit of a mystery because I messaged this guy that we know here in Uchinada and let him know. And he was like, "Yeah, that's my buddy." And I was like, "Great, well you can tell him like
yeah,
I
we
have
figured he would want
his like
the
memory
footage
card."
back.
And we haven't heard back. So
Yeah, maybe he's embarrassed that he crashed it, or I don't know.
Maybe.
That's so weird because I think it's this crazy cool story, and meanwhile he's like, yeah, I don't even want to bother like reaching out, which is fine. Maybe has reasons, but
Or the way he worded it, he said that the guy that he was visiting used to live in Kiso. So I don't know if he lives in Japan anymore or if it's
Yeah.
like a
maybe he just didn't
moved.
care about the photos and videos that much.
Yeah, because he honestly hadn't used it like a lot.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate because you could see the video that he just hit a tree.
Yeah.
And then the drone went into the river.
Yeah.
And then it was in the river for, I guess, 3 months. And
That's such an awful feeling. Every time, Zeb is a very good drone flyer. He took like a long class online and everything about it too, and
Well,
got
because-
licensed.
yeah, so
But it still makes
in
me
America,
nervous.
we were using it for recreation, but also for like the business we were working for. And if you use it for a business, you have to go through the
There's
FAA
like a licensing
or whatever.
program.
Yeah, you have to get a license from the Federal Aviation Administration to fly your drone to use it for business, or else they can come after you and give you like a huge fine.
Yeah.
So I did like a long program to get licensed, and I have like a little like dinky.
Like a little
it looks cool
driver's
because
license
it's
for
like
your
oh man, I
mini
have my
drone.
pilot's license, and then yeah, it's like drones.
It's kind of nerdy.
Which drones are actually really easy to fly in Japan also, because you don't need the license, but you do have to go through like a registration process. And it was funny. I don't comment on Reddit a lot, but I used a thread because there was a guy asking about flying a drone in Japan, and he was getting all these comments that were like Japan's really against illegal drone flyers, and they're gonna chase you down, and they'll like prosecute you, and they'll shoot nets at you, and they'll catch you, and they'll see the drone. It was just like all these comments, and it's like none of that's true. Like,
Yeah, there are instances that you just shouldn't fly one out of respect, just like anywhere. But like in this room we're recording, there's a banner kind of tapestry from Shirakawa-go, and in that historical village, they make it very clear that you can't fly drones there, and it makes sense.
some places
that
they'll
people
have
are
signs
living there.
And
So
then
yeah,
the big thing in Japan is you just have to get it registered, so you have to pay for it. You have to like write your ID numbers on the drone, and so there's some hoops like that. And then other than that, for recreational flights, you can fly it almost anywhere except for heavily populated areas. And then of course areas where they tell you like there are signs.
yeah,
But there's like a really nice interactive map online, and you can click through it and kind of see where it's okay to do it and where it's not okay to do it. But most places, like near where we live in rural areas, totally fine.
yeah.
Like, not a big deal. But yeah, sometimes it's funny to like read what people are saying. But yeah, so we
There's
did
an
that.
update.
So
And this week you also had a new experience because you were a guest on another podcast.
yeah, this was a couple weeks ago now, I guess. But the episode
It just came out.
released last Friday,
Yeah, it's up now, and
June 1st.
We're
the
gonna
episode
link-
came out.
we'll link it in the episode description.
Yeah.
But the podcast itself was called Japan Station Podcast.
Yeah, which I'm pretty envious because his intro to his podcast is really cool.
Yeah.
It's like you're pulling into a train station and it's like a little train announcement and it has some nice audio.
Yeah, like the doors opening and stuff.
Yeah, I'm a little envious of that. But yeah, that was a fun experience.
We'll have to up our game.
I'd never been a guest on a podcast before. I mean, other than
Yeah, so
this
the
one.
host, you're a guest on my podcast.
Yeah.
The host is Tony Vega, and he has a couple other podcasts that he either hosts himself or co-hosts. And the whole like station kind of program is called Japan Kyo, but the one that Zeb was on is Japan Station Podcast.
And he's an interesting guy. He was an ALT in near Osaka, I think. He told me.
I think
in
Kobe.
Kobe, okay. He was an ALT in Kobe area, and yeah, lived in Japan for a few years, and now he's in Hawaii, and he's like fluent in Japanese, which is cool. Like,
Yeah, and
it's really
speaking of
impressive.
Kobe, one of our listeners just got placed there.
I know we did get an email from a
Yeah.
listener that they were placed in Kobe.
Big congrats.
So, yeah.
I'm sure he'll hear from everybody like, oh, I hope you like Kobe beef. But that is kind of nice.
Yeah, I think Kobe would be a sweet placement because it's a big city. I don't know how many people live in Kobe, but
it's pretty centrally located.
it feels kind of like the gateway to the south.
Yeah.
So like from Kobe, it's really easy to get to
Like the Kansai
Osaka
region.
and Kyoto, and it's still easy to get to Tokyo because you could take a bullet
Yeah.
train. But then you're also like right there. It's probably pretty convenient to go to, I don't know, like Fukuoka or go down south. So
Yeah,
it sounds sweet.
not very far away from us, but it is on the south side of the Honshu, the main island.
Yeah,
So,
kind of like right where Shizuoka starts, or not Shizuoka, Shikoku,
yeah.
the island.
We haven't been to Kobe, but we passed through it on a train when we went to go see Himeji Castle,
Mm-hmm.
which I would recommend. I want to go back, but Himeji is one of the 12 remaining original castles.
Is Himeji in Kobe?
I think it's in Himeji.
Okay.
Like the castle is in.
But I feel like we had to like transfer in Kobe or something, or we stopped in Kobe. I can't remember.
Well,
But
Himeji Castle is very cool.
it was cool.
Congrats to him.
Because that's kind of
for-
billed as like the most grand of the original castles.
I think it's the most well preserved because out of the 12, some of them like only have the Tenshu, like the main keep is still there and it counts, but like the rest of it was either burned down or rebuilt, but they have part of the castle is still original. But Himeji I think is the most well preserved. I may be wrong, but
That's cool.
it's very impressive.
It is a nice castle.
Yeah,
I like
and you
seeing
can
it.
go inside and
Yeah.
look out from the towers and all that.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Did you think that being on Tony's podcast was what you expected?
I think so. I think I was more nervous than I thought it was going to be because I thought it was going to be like this, just like chatting. But I think the thing that...
You thought it was just going to be like talking to your wife?
Well, I think that's the thing that made me more nervous. I realized like, oh wait, I'm on someone else's show. So if I sound bad or like do something dumb...
Can't cut it out.
Well, I can't cut it out, but also like if I'm not an interesting person, then it affects the quality of his show.
Yeah.
Where this, if we're not interesting people, it's just our podcast, so it doesn't
People
really
just
matter.
turn it off.
It's like, well, it's just us. So
yeah.
Yeah, so that made me a little more, maybe not nervous, but it made me more self-conscious.
Yeah.
I guess because I felt like I had to perform maybe.
Yeah.
And so then I would
makes
be
sense.
thinking about answers, and I feel like I would start rambling, and then I would kind of forget like what
like
the
the
actual
second half of
question.
an answer or something.
Yeah.
I think it went well. And
Yeah, Annie
people
listened to it. I honestly haven't listened to it yet because makes me
well,
sweaty to think
yeah,
about it.
I don't think I would listen to my own hour-long conversation, but
Yeah.
I listened to it about you. I
That's
thought it was
good.
pretty good.
Okay. Well,
But we didn't say what it was about, but he had you on there to talk about specifically road racing in Japan and then also like jet program experiences.
yeah, we ended up talking about jet program stuff because he's like he had lived in Japan as an ALT, and that's what I'm currently here as. So.
Yeah. And
It's a fun
speaking of
experience.
jet program experiences, you're going to have to get your self-consciousness under control again because you're
Well,
going
this
to
one I'm not as worried about because it's not being recorded or
yeah,
anything.
you're going to be a panelist.
Yep.
So what's that about?
So and I'm sure other consulates do it, but the Nashville consulate, the guy who is like the jet program coordinator, he put on, I don't know
You
if
say
you call him,
national or Nashville?
Nashville.
Oh.
He put on like panelist discussions that you could tune in for. So when you were, because right now people that they know they got accepted, they got their placements, they're probably hearing from their predecessors, and they're only like 2.5 months away from moving to Japan, which is super exciting.
Yeah, I
so
remember there
you're
were a bunch
kinda-
of Q&A sessions that we like tuned in on.
So this is the time where like everything's happening, so you're getting pretty antsy and curious. So the guy that is at Nashville and is the jet program coordinator, he was hosting kind of like panelist discussions. So people that are on the jet program could, they would be in the call and you could join, and they would just ask the jet people like questions and you could ask questions. So
Did this one have a specific question theme, or was it just kind of
I don't think so.
open
I feel like
Q&A?
this one is kind of like the generic, hey, here's some jet participants.
Because you
They're
said there's
gonna-
like 12 of y'all. I thought it would
There are a
be
lot.
just a few.
I know, because I remember when I joined one of the calls, that's why I volunteered, because last year when I was joining them, I feel like one of the calls, one guy like overslept and didn't come, and then there were only like 4 panelists or
Yeah.
something. So this time I volunteered because I remember last year I was like, I'm sure it's a pain.
And it's cool to hear because everyone has so many different, like you might be teaching in a high school or elementary school
Yeah.
or rural or city. And
So that's like part of it. I feel like we have these little like stat cards that are like, what's your like unique angle in the JET program?
yeah.
And I guess mine is I'm a prefectural teacher, so I'm at a high school. I have a dependent with me,
It's me.
and we drive.
Oh,
Now-
we're on there because we drive?
No, but that was like one of the suggestions
Oh,
he gave.
interesting.
He was like, maybe if you have like a thing that you have experience with, such as like having a dependent or driving.
Oh. Yeah, well, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about getting a car, we're going to have a whole episode coming up about converting your international driver's license to a license because at the end of July, we have our driver's test. So
Yeah, we're in the process now. But
yeah. But we haven't done that yet. I'm just nervous about it.
yeah. But yeah, I need to set my alarm because that's going to be tomorrow morning
Yeah.
for the panelist thing. So I mean, I think it should be fun. And then they're going to put us in like breakout rooms or whatever where, people can ask us questions specifically. So.
And I guess it's not like rare to bring your spouse, but it is less common just because the whole program, it seems to be geared more towards people that are right out of college because you're in a more flexible time of your life, I would think. And
Yeah.
there certainly are jets that are much older, like 40s I've even seen.
But I think that gets much rarer.
Yeah.
I think it's like super common.
It's a lot
in
of
your
young
20s.
20s.
It gets not like maybe out of like 100 people or a lot of people that came with my like Ishikawa group.
Yeah.
There were like only a handful of us. I think
What are
that
you
were in
going
our
to say
30s.
about having a dependent with you?
It's rough.
It's a huge burden to bring your wife along.
Yeah. You got to really think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe just leave her behind.
Maybe just reconsider the whole marriage.
Yeah, I mean, you could just
Well,
think about
so actually
maybe
that's-
this isn't working out. I gotta move to Japan.
Yeah, I'm trying to move
Don't
to
tell your
Japan
wife.
to get away from the dependent.
Yeah, she doesn't get don't send her passport in.
Well, that is something to note, though, that you do have to be actually legally married to count as
Yeah.
a dependent.
The only thing
So-
I can think of, honestly, that would make a difference is your options are going to be a lot more limited if you have if you bring a spouse who's not going to be working.
Yeah, I mean,
I think just in the way that like you can make it by with 2 people on a jet program like salary, it's like definitely manageable because that's usually what we try to do. We kind of have been off the rails lately, but we
get a
usually
little
try to
wild
be
at
like
the
really
convenience
good
store.
where we pay for like all of our living expenses just on my salary, and it's doable. But then once you think about like traveling around the country and like actually, on your weekends taking a trip or doing something, it gets a little harder because
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the money just gets tighter because we have made it a priority to travel frequently. But if you're coming,
yeah,
I
but also
wouldn't
the
be
money gets
worried.
tighter because naturally they're just 2 people. You're just paying,
Yeah.
for like any time, for instance, like just one example, even with travel, anytime we want to go to Tokyo, it immediately doubles the expense because hotels don't charge you by the room. They're going to charge you by the person. And I mean, so we can't stay in like a capsule hotel because it's not just me. And then also we need 2 Shinkansen tickets, which immediately gets, just so expensive. So when
Well-
you think about traveling with a spouse, like, of course I wouldn't want to do it without, like, I wouldn't want to just go to Tokyo on the weekend and leave
Yeah,
you
you
in
don't want to
Uchinata.
leave me. Goodness.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like, I don't know if people think about that. So just financially, if your spouse isn't working, then it's just a little bit tighter.
Yeah. However,
Which is why we're lucky because you're working.
I was going to
so.
say, like, just because you're dependent doesn't mean you can't work. It means you have to get permission to start
Mhm.
working. So I can work 28 hours, which is what I do. And the reason I'm able to do that is because I took my job contract and my residence card. I think that's it. And I went to the immigration office and filled out an application, basically just asking permission and telling them what I do
Yeah.
and what my salary would be. And then it's up to them to either say yes or no. It seems kind of lucky. Like you either get lucky or they reject it, because that's what the lawyer I met with, just to make sure I was doing everything right. He was like, yeah, it seems fine, but like it's really just up to how they feel in the day, whether they want to accept your request or not. And I was like, okay, well, I got the stamp, so
Yeah.
that's good. And the really nice thing about being a dependent and working is yes, you can only work 28 hours, but you can work 28 hours doing anything.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny situation because I can only be a teacher.
Yeah,
like my visa specifically says that I'm an instructor.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I tried to work outside of that, I would be violating my visa and we could get deported.
Right.
Whereas
so
Annie
like,
can literally do anything. Like her, she's
anything
limited to
except
28 hours a week.
the sex industry.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so you
But
can't be like, well,
you can't be a prostitute, but otherwise you can do anything.
can you be a hostess? Could you work in a hostess bar? Because that's not technically.
I mean, I don't know what counts as being in the sex
Yeah.
industry. So
Anyway. Yeah, so I mean,
really.
there are definitely like massive pros and cons. But I think
Yeah.
that would be the one thing I would like tell them, like up front. Like if you're coming and you're planning on supporting a family, but your family isn't going to be working, it's doable, but you're limiting your options in terms of just like, like travel. So you have to be more mindful of having like a pretty strict budget.
yeah.
That would be
And
my like, big thing.
Having to be married is a big hurdle for same-sex couples because it is Japan is very behind the times on that.
Well, I mean, a lot of states in America are behind the times on that.
Yeah, but at
So-
least in America, in general, you can find a place to get legally married in America, but then Japan doesn't recognize that, which is sad. They have
It's
started
slowly changing.
They've
like,
started
I
to
think I recently
increase
read
it.
the Supreme Court in Nagoya or something said that you can't not be okay with it.
Well,
So
they're
some like local people are starting to change their minds.
so they're changing it, but you still are not able to come over on the JET program with a same-sex spouse. And then if you do come over, you can't. They wouldn't be a dependent visa. They could apply for what's called a designated activities visa, which is kind of like a catch-all.
Yeah, but what's your designated activity?
I don't know.
Being
You'd have
married?
to, yeah,
Like,
you'd have to, I think, go through a court, and they would have to be like, okay, yeah, they're like a partner. But it's just difficult because in Japan, gay marriage isn't recognized. So when you say, oh, here's my marriage certificate, they would be like, that doesn't mean anything to us, which is sad. But yeah, so you can't get a dependent visa currently, but it's slowly changing, and there's the ability, they have let people come.
But I don't know if I would say any of this because I'm not in that situation,
No.
Like
no.
if they were asking me like, what's it like having a dependent? I won't be like, well.
No, I mean, we're not qualified to speak on that, but it is just something unfortunate to note about Japan.
Yeah, so that'll be on Wednesday. And then, so something to look forward to this coming week. But this past weekend.
Yeah, we went to the festival.
Yeah.
We talked about that last week, but it was the Hyakumangoku Festival. I said that in a very American accent, but
Hyakumangoku.
yeah.
From Dragon Ball Z.
So basically the Hyakumangoku Festival, it happens the first Saturday in June every year, and it commemorates the entry of Lord Maeda Toshie into Kanazawa Castle in 1583. And it basically celebrates how rich Kanazawa became, which is kind of funny. But the name of the festival, Hyakumangoku, we talked about Hyakuman before, meaning 1 million, because that's Kanazawa's mascot is Hyakuman-san, Mr. 1 million. And Goku is a rendaku of koku, and that means stone. And so just like how, I can't think of a good example, but a stone is, of course, a physical stone, but it's also
It's like a measurement of weight.
Like in England, don't they measure by stones?
Yeah, but I don't know what a
weight.
stone is.
Yeah, I don't either, but apparently 1.8 koku of rice it covers your living expenses for one person for 1 year. So it's kind of a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of rice.
Yeah. And often in like Edo period times, you would measure your wealth, and samurai would get paid in a number of koku. And so having 1 million koku is kind of a big deal for a city.
I mean, you can almost support 1 million people.
Yeah.
I guess really like 500,000,
So,
which is about the population of Kanazawa.
So actually, during the Maeda clan, 1 million koku of rice is 48 million gallons.
Which
That's a lot of
that
gallons.
is?
What?
73 Olympic pools.
How do you know that?
Because I looked it up.
Oh.
Because I was like,
Thought you
like
just knew.
we're Americans and we use gallons. And then I was like, what did Europeans use? Of course, they would use liters.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know what. I was trying to visualize, like, what does that look like? So I Googled
It's a lot
it.
of pools.
73 Olympic pools. And I had to look up Olympic pools. I always wonder why people used Olympic pools.
Mm-hmm.
as like
I guess because
the
it's a standard.
Yeah, because at first I googled pool, like just
Yeah.
how many pools
Could
is
be
that,
anything.
and then there were a bunch of pictures of like different shapes and sizes.
Like a kiddie pool.
Yeah, so I was like, okay.
73
like,
kiddie pools is not that impressive.
No, but 73 Olympic pools.
Yeah.
That's a lot of rice.
Yeah, so Kanazawa during the Maeda clan rule got that rich partially because they were investing in the arts, and if you visit Kanazawa you'll hear like a lot about that. Of course it's a point of pride because it's very cool, but also they'll be like, oh, we have the pottery and the gold leaf and all these different things, and they were supporting
like the geisha, and they have
they were supporting the arts instead of the military because they didn't want to seem intimidating to the ruling party, like they were trying to overthrow or anything. They were like, no, we're just buying some pottery over here. It's fine.
Yeah, which they have like a really good tourism video where they show like the things that you'll love about Ishikawa.
Yeah.
And the guy uses like
the
a really
narrator
funny
voice.
Yeah, he's like got his narrator voice, but he's trying really hard not to have an accent from like anywhere.
Yeah.
So he's just using this
sound
very
like
generic
Siri.
standard speech.
Yeah.
But they talk about that like that's why Kanazawa is like it is. And
so that's how they got.
We didn't get bombed.
Well, yeah, that
So
helps
that
a
was
lot too.
big
None of
thing.
none of the old buildings were bombed, but the other reason why they were so wealthy is not only because they were investing in the arts, but they had this strategic marriage between the grandchildren, not in the same family. So the son of Toshi Maeda got married to the daughter of the Tokugawa shogunate, and that was the two richest families in the country at the time. And so, but it's kind of a sad ending for Princess Tama because when the son was 8, I think, they got betrothed to the princess who was 3 at the time, and they got married whatever the appropriate age to get married is, probably when they were still children.
Probably like 10.
But she had a bunch of kids, and she died when she was 24, which is so young and sad.
Yeah.
And apparently, they said that their marriage was a very happy one, and that apparently her husband cried openly in public, which was supposed to be like a very frowned upon thing.
Dang, yeah.
For a male ruler at the time. So
males in general. I mean.
Yeah. So, it seems like he cared for her, but yeah, what a sad time. She had 7 children already when she was 24. So that's a difficult life. But she's very celebrated and people love her, and she has her own shrine. I don't know if you realized that in Kanazawa. You can go. It's kind of out of the way. It's like north of the city. I haven't been up there.
Toshi's shrine's Oyama.
Oh, yeah, like the Maeda.
Pretty sure that's like where he is enshrined. And they have his like armor and stuff in there. And of course we can't see it because we're peasants.
Yeah.
But apparently it's,
they don't
it's
let
in there.
Like commoners see it. I guess.
I don't know if anyone really gets to see it, maybe other than
the
like
Shinto priest.
Yeah, the head priest maybe. But.
Yeah. So in the parade they have actors play the parts. They don't really do much. They just kind of stand on horses or floats. Yeah,
they have like general procession stuff. So, they're like marching bands and stuff like that first. But then it kind of gets into the historical, like people are dressed up and.
Yeah, because it's supposed to symbolize the procession of like Lord Maeda into the castle in 1583. So the biggest part of the festival lasts all weekend, and it starts on Friday. But the biggest part is the Saturday parade. Yeah,
the stuff on Friday is kind of like the ritualistic religious aspect where they do some like purification rituals. You kind of go to the Shinto shrine, you hang out, and you kind of do the more spiritual part of it.
They also do have a children's parade on Friday night.
Unfortunately, it was raining. It was like really gross because a typhoon was kind of like pushing through, or the remnants of a typhoon.
In the past, they've also had a lantern event where they'll float paper lanterns down the Asanogawa, and I really wanted to see that, but 1, it was pouring, and 2, it wasn't on the calendar. I don't know if they saw the forecast and were like, yeah, paper lanterns aren't going to go well, but instead they just had the children. I'm not exactly sure, but on the pictures they were making it seem like the children would just be holding the lanterns and walking, which is still cool, but not as cool as
going
the
down
river.
Yeah.
Maybe that's bad for the environment. Hopefully they collect all the lanterns at the end.
So we didn't do any of the Friday stuff. 1, I had to work that day, and like the ritualistic stuff happens kind of early on Friday morning.
Yeah, I think the first like blessing starts at 10. And you can go to tea ceremonies and stuff.
Yeah. So we really just went to the parade, which was really cool because they shut down like the city.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah, it starts at 2. We rode our bikes to the station, but you could take the train. I mean, the train station was fully operable. I wouldn't drive. I wouldn't try to find parking.
Yeah, because I don't know what you would do. And it is kind of, I get it if you're driving into the city because the parade route kind of cuts the city in half. Mm-hmm. And so you would have to drive like almost all the way around the city to get to the other side.
If you were coming from the ocean, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was very convenient that we had bikes.
Yeah, we just rode down the little bike path and then...
Yeah, it was packed.
Parked our bikes and then walked over and checked it out.
I was pretty impressed. But it starts with taiko drumming.
That was probably honestly my favorite part.
The drums?
I don't know why, but I really like taiko drums. I just think they're cool. Yeah. They sound cool.
And it vibrates the air, you know, so you can like feel it. You can like feel the
And they're huge.
Energy.
And it's such like a physical, like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They're just so big, so when people are playing them, you know, they're like really getting after it.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like a little dinky snare drum where it's just kind of like...
You have to like move your entire arm, shoulder to like
it's a huge performance.
Bang on it. They did also have probably 50 people up there doing the drumming because they had the really, really big drums that were taller than a person.
Yeah, those are the cool ones. Like
and they had people that were like standing in front of them banging on those. Yeah. But then they had... Did you see? We were kind of far away, but did you see? Yeah,
they had the people with like the little drums.
It was coordinated though.
Yeah,
like,
they were definitely.
Their hands would all go up at once.
Coordinated, yeah.
So it was like cool. A cool dance kind of thing. But once they do that drumming to kind of signal the start, I guess, then everyone goes. They start walking down pretty much the main thoroughfare of Kanazawa, starting from the station, going down that street towards.
They
Omicho.
hit like all the touristy like. You know, like highlights.
Like Omicho Market, then they turn
go to the
right.
Station, they hit Omicho, they hit Oyama, go by Kenroku-en.
Yeah.
It's a long walk.
Yeah. I felt bad because we started where they started and then we would bike down and see periodically along the route. Mm-hmm. And by the time I got to the end, right before Kenroku-en, there's a really nice grassy area kind of outside the castle park, and they had a bunch of food stands up, which was also really nice. We had some really cheap yakisoba.
That's true.
But we were watching there, and the poor children there looked so exhausted.
Yeah, by the time they were getting there. And so one thing I read, you remember the kid that was doing they were doing the weird chant thing, he was doing the hey thing, and then the other kids would do their thing, dancing, and then they had the adult version. Mm-hmm. So we'll have to see it twice. There's another shrine in a little town near us that's famous for soy sauce breweries. Mm-hmm. They also have a really big festival, and when I was looking through pictures of it, it looked exactly like what we saw, but they translated that as the slave procession. So I don't know if they were recreating some form, and maybe it's just a mistranslation, but they were recreating...
Or maybe like Toshima Eda had slaves that went before him to carry all his stuff.
Yeah, and so that's what they were translating, like what we saw the kids, and then later like... And they often had this in the parade. There would be like a kid version, and then there would be adults doing the exact same thing.
Yeah,
so
but with the kids, the things they were carrying were like models. So they weren't like actually carrying.
They were a little like scaled down.
Like heavy shrine things and all that. But it still looked very cumbersome to be like also, a child.
Yeah, and you have to walk that far.
Like at first it seems really fun because you get to dress up.
Yeah.
At least thinking of me, I feel like I would be like really into it for the first mile, and the second mile I'd be like, I'm over it. Like I'm in a hot wig, wearing a costume, carrying this pole. Yeah. So they did very good. They were very strong.
And then, so the second part, I was going to tell you this. I saw, you know, the things that we saw that we were calling dragons?
Yeah.
Everything I saw translated that as the lion dance.
Oh.
So maybe they look like dragons, but they translate as the lion dance. So I don't know if the person that is slaying the thing is... Like so they do like a ritualistic dance where the guys in the wigs that were also carrying like the spears, they do like a ritualistic like dance performance thing where they like kill the lion/dragon, and I think that represents the like exorcism of sin. And so they do like a little performance, but I couldn't tell like, is the guy dancing the lion or is the thing getting killed the lion?
Oh, definitely the thing getting killed.
But the
huge beast.
I just thought it was a dragon.
Yeah,
so
it does look like a dragon.
Yeah.
It was a very impressive festival, and at the very end, like you were saying with the like actors who finally come through, they were on real horses, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, and they're quasi-famous.
Yeah, they had like kind of an entourage of video cameras following them because the
And
parade
then the
is
one main guy had like
live.
a security
Yeah.
like detail
Yeah.
that would kind of like walk next to him, which was kind of funny because, I mean, maybe if you're a Japanese, and I tried to look him up, and I think he's been in some TV shows and stuff, but as a foreigner in Japan, I had no idea who that guy was.
Yeah.
But maybe, you know, like all the housewives around us were like, oh my God.
Everyone did get really excited.
Yeah.
Like when he walked by, they were like, oh,
Yeah.
look over here. And they were trying
Yeah.
to take pictures.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess he's actually, you know, kind of like a big deal. I don't know.
Yeah.
We saw him.
Well, so it finishes at the castle, and they kind of do this thing where they take the horses away, and everyone's on foot. And I don't know where they take the horses, but they quietly move them.
Straight to the glue factory.
Oh my gosh. And everyone is like lined up waiting for the final procession bit. And I don't know exactly what they were saying, but basically like Lord Maeda Toshi is like, I'm here. And he like runs into the castle and everyone like cheers.
And then they did a little like dance battle thing.
Yeah. And
I noticed that they would like run in circles in the little field. So I think they were like recreating like a battle. And then they had like just a standard like dance. Like they started playing some like.
It was a bit confusing, that final part, because the castle in Kanazawa always saw peace. Like they had all these big fortresses, but
to it.
yeah, maybe there was just like a little scuffle,
some excitement. I don't know.
But yeah, there was no
Jazzing
like mega battle when he arrived to Kanazawa. But overall, it was really cool.
I really just liked it because the atmosphere, the drumming, and then the atmosphere in general. Because I had a coworker that told me that there were like 400,000 people.
Yeah.
In Kanazawa for the celebration. And it really did feel kind of, not that we're like, you know, people keep talking about like, oh, it's not like post-COVID because COVID's still a thing. Mm-hmm. But in Japan, the lockdowns have been for so long and the mask mandates have been for so long and like people haven't been gathering together for so long. So this was the first huge gathering I feel like I've seen.
Yeah, it
in
felt
Japan.
very like a party. Well, no, last summer we did get to go to like the Obon festivals and stuff.
We did, but even that still felt very like muted. Like everyone outside was still,
wearing the masks.
Everyone was still kind of trying to stay away from each other.
Because the mandate was still under effect with the
and it was still like a little muted, where this felt more
like a summer festival.
Kind of wide open. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can watch it on YouTube if you're interested.
Yeah, it was also on just TV. Most of my coworkers were like, I'm going to sit inside and I'm going to watch it on TV. That's what they were doing. So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame them because it was like crowded and hot, but I think it was a really cool experience.
Two of the English teachers said they were going to watch it on TV, and one of the English teachers was like, I'm not getting involved at all. So I was like, okay.
Relaxing.
Yeah.
That's fun too. But speaking of hot weather, do you want to talk about Cool Biz?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I think it's finally officially Cool Biz season.
June 1st, I think, is the start.
Which, this is like a funny jet thing. They make a big deal about like, oh, make sure you bring your suit and tie and for orientation. And yes, at orientation, they did make us wear the suit jacket and ties, or they heavily implied that you needed to.
Yeah, especially for orientation.
Yeah, so they made like a really big deal about it, and it was this like huge thing. And then I was asking, so when I was like in Japan, I was messaging with my then supervisor and kind of asking him, you know, like, you know, on the first day when I get there, am I going to like directly to the school? Do I need to be wearing my suit? And, you know, I was just trying to ask him so I didn't make any mistakes. And he kind of made fun of it, and he was like, no one is wearing a jacket and tie right now. He's like, do not show up in a jacket and tie.
Because
like,
this was August. It was like the peak summer.
Yeah. And so he explained to me that it's like Cool Biz season, where you just wear the collared shirt. Mm-hmm. You don't wear a tie, and you don't wear a jacket. And of course you wear like slacks and stuff. Mm-hmm. So he was telling me like, definitely like don't show up in a jacket and tie, because that would be just overkill. He's like, it's so hot and humid.
And it's hard because you want to represent Jet well, and they tell you definitely have to show up in a tie and jacket, because otherwise you're going to look rude. But then,
which I guess like is an orientation thing, which I mean, in orientation we were in an air-conditioned hotel.
And you're all in Tokyo together.
But it's funny because it wasn't a great representative of, I guess, what you're standard. I mean, maybe some people end up at a school that's like very traditional or something.
Yeah,
and
maybe
you
so.
do
Maybe in the bigger
year-round.
cities, it's still, maybe they don't do the cool biz.
Yeah, but anyway, Cool Biz ended on October 1st.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very strict deadline where my supervisor came to me like the week before, and he was like, "Oh, just so you know, like October 1st."
Yeah, you have to bring a jacket now.
Which is just so funny because it's not a temperature thing. It's not like hey, we're finally getting to this temperature. Cool Biz is over. It was like October 1st. Cool Biz is over.
Well, I was
Which
reading
then,
about
like the
it.
beginning of October, it was still kind of hot.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, dang, it doesn't feel cool busy.
I thought it was just like a kind of agreement that your local prefectural group had decided like, oh, we should just be more relaxed. But it's actually nationwide, and even more than that, it was a government decision. So I think that's why it's so strict on the exact dates. But
They probably had to give, June
specifics. 1st, October 1.
Yeah.
And some things are saying that May actually, but you said that you haven't seen it
I
in
mentioned
May.
this to Annie because really it was just yesterday, like Monday, it was June 5th. I walked in and I realized just at one point I was the only person wearing a tie. And I was like, oh, maybe Cool Biz is officially back. There were some people that were still wearing like the jacket, but no tie. So I think I was the only male teacher with a tie on. So I think I can ditch the tie now.
That's good. But I was reading that apparently the Japanese Ministry of the Environment initiated it, and that was in 2005 in the summer, and they did it, they said, to limit the air conditioner use. And so it was supposed to be kind of an environmental push.
Yeah,
more
Japan
than like comfort.
Does a lot of funny things. Like I think I maybe have mentioned this on the podcast before, but back in the winter, there was a news article about this, I think she was the mayor of Tokyo or something, or a mayor in Tokyo got in a little bit of trouble because at a press conference, she told everyone, like, oh, you just need to wear a turtleneck because it was getting cold and like electricity in Japan is really expensive. Mm-hmm. And she was like, oh, just wear a turtleneck. Like, and that'll keep you warm. And then that's where I learned the phrase mitsukubi, which is your three necks. You got your neck, and then you got your wrists, and then you have your ankles.
Oh,
because wrists are like takubi, which is literally just hand neck. And then
foot is
ankles
ashikubi.
are ashikubi, which is literally just foot neck. And so apparently it's mitsukubi. You have your three necks.
I didn't think about that.
And so she had this thing about how like if you just
cover all three necks.
Yeah, you keep your three necks warm. You don't need to use heat in the building.
If only it were that easy.
They had like a big push in the Tokyo metropolis area to start wearing turtlenecks so they could cut down on the electricity bill. And so there was, of course, like a big thing about, then they make a big thing about it because like people would show up to press conferences and they'd have their turtlenecks on.
Wow.
And they're like, see, I'm a government man. I'm wearing my turtleneck. But
yeah. And apparently when they initiated like Cool Biz and doing all this kind of changing your uniform to help with the seasons, a lot of the government workers were kind of against it because it felt really, they said that when they were commuting on trains with people who were in the private sector and they were in not suit and jacket, they felt rude, like, or if they had meetings with, they were government officials and they would meet with private sector people and they didn't want to show up not wearing a tie and look like they had underdressed for the occasion.
Yeah, I can see it because I feel like I don't really like wearing a suit, but sometimes when I go to my like school in Kanazawa at night, when I'm wearing my suit, it does give me a feeling of like kind of belonging because I look like I'm working.
Yeah.
And
like
so
you're going somewhere.
Yeah, it gives you that kind of feeling of like
I have somewhere to be.
Yeah, I'm doing something.
Yeah.
And then other people in suits, you kind of like the camaraderie of like, yeah, that guy's doing something too.
like,
we're all doing something.
Yeah.
So I guess I get it, but also now knowing that I don't need to wear a tie anymore is kind of nice.
It's comfy.
So, yeah. Cool biz.
So you had a note also about one of your teachers telling you about what Ushinada was like when he was teaching like 3 decades ago. Oh yeah,
this can just be quick, but it's just Big Sale Sensei told me that just randomly in class he was like, oh yeah, I actually worked at Ushinada 30 years ago, like when the school was like just opening. And he was just talking about how, there were like 1,000 students and they had so many home rooms.
That's
and
a lot
he was like, there were
people.
Kids everywhere. And he was like, And he was like, and back then kids, a lot of the kids were going to college. And
Did he say like that why there was a reason? I mean, were there just more people in Uchinada, or now
well, I think
are
there's
more
just less people now, and then now I think in general
more
there are
people
just
go to
less
Kanazawa?
kids in Japan because the population's falling apart.
Yeah, but
which there was another article about that. Every week there's an article that likes to point out that every woman in Japan can only be expected to have 1.26 births per lifetime,
oh
and
my gosh.
yeah, it's absurd.
Yeah, but 1,000 kids to, I mean, it's probably only like 200
yeah, it's like
now.
200 kids.
That's a huge
But
decline.
I think a big deal is a lot of kids now they want to go to school in the city, and so. And back then, I think because there were so many kids and it was so crowded, you kind of,
Yeah, and it would probably be more fun to go to a school that has 1,000 kids. And now...
Yeah, or a school that was like just built, so it's probably the appeal of, it's a brand new school, like a new facility. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, he just said it was different.
That would be hard to keep working somewhere over 3 decades
well,
and
I asked
see
him,
it
I was like,
change.
did you think you were ever going to come back here? And he was like, no. He's like, I never thought I would be back in Uchinada. He did tell me I was a little envious. The school that he used to work at, he said was also a pretty special circumstance. Because he's fascinated that I work at Chuo. And so sometimes he'll ask me about it. He's like, what's it like over there? Which is really funny because I don't know why people are so fascinated by it, but I am too. And so occasionally teachers will ask me, like, what's it like over there?
Yeah.
And so we were talking about it, and I asked him, he worked in an agricultural school. And I was like, that must have been pretty unique.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, it was. He was like, sometimes there would be an announcement over the intercom, like, all right, today the cucumbers are here. And you would go down and you could buy like a basket of cucumbers. And he was like, every day there was like a different vegetable you could go buy. And I was like, that sounds sweet.
Yeah, the market comes to you.
Yeah, agricultural school.
Except then you only have one, like a bunch of one thing. Like what can you make with a bushel of cucumbers?
Pickles.
That's true, actually.
You're making a lot of pickles. I don't know. But yeah, it was just interesting. And with Big Sale Sensei, I got to grade my first assignment ever.
Wow.
As a teacher.
Did it go well?
For the most part, yeah, because it was so easy. So they got an A if they had it memorized. It was 3 sentences.
Oh.
They got an A if they had 3 sentences memorized and they could just kind of say it. They would get a B if they had to look at their paper, but they could read it. And they got a C if there was like nothing prepared at all.
That's it? They got a C?
Yep.
Not even like a fail?
The scoring didn't go below a C.
Wow.
The rubric was ABC. So I gave out mostly A's and then a couple B's.
That's good. No C's.
Yeah, I didn't have to give out any C's because most of them could at least like read their paper.
Oh yeah. Yeah. How would you even get a C? You
I
just
think
look
a C
at the
would be
paper.
like you didn't bring your paper and you also couldn't do anything.
Interesting.
So
well,
basically, like I think you failed. But
glad you weren't in
would
that
get a C.
scenario.
Yeah, so I gave out a lot of A's and B's, and yeah,
You did it.
This is good.
Well, do you have a word of the week?
I do, and it is Tsuchinoko, which isn't really I mean, it's a word, but it's not really a word you would ever use in conversation. So Tsuchinoko, I think literally translated means the child of hammer, and it's
Sounds intense.
it's a little. Some people say it's mythical. Some people say it's real. It's a little snake creature that lives in the mountains.
Oh.
And it has like a little snake head, and then it has this weird like bulbous snake body.
How
It's
does he
not
get
like
around?
long, it's like fat. He jumps.
What?
Apparently it can leap. People say it jumps like 6 feet in the air and it kind of like wriggles around. And apparently it used to be a big deal. You get chased by the Tsuchinoko. And apparently they can go downhill really fast, I guess, because they can like jump.
Because they're fat, they just roll.
Yeah, but they can't go uphill. So they said if you saw a Tsuchinoko, you would run uphill because they can't go very fast uphill.
Wow.
But they hate sunlight, so they never come out in the day. And there's something else they didn't like. But a guy is making some documentary about it.
Really?
Yeah, because he said that he saw one when he was a kid.
Oh.
And then he went on to become like a quasi well-known like movie director. And
That's
so
kinda
now
cool.
he's making a movie. But apparently it's also supposed to be kind of like a story about like rural Japan and like depopulation and how deforestation is
That's cool.
like
Do you know when
blowing
the
stuff
movie
out. And
comes out?
I can't remember. I
A
read a
long time
news
from
article
now.
about it, but they had like a little funny like poster about the Tsuchinoko, and apparently there's still places that will give you like a really big reward if you can find one.
Oh, really?
Because yeah, some people are like, no, it's a thing. Like they're they're
Well,
real.
yeah, and why not have a reward? Because then you can know once and for all.
Yeah.
You bring one back or you don't.
Yeah, so this guy made like a little documentary and apparently interviewed a bunch of people that
Hmm.
claim that they've seen the Tsuchinoko, and yeah, it's just like a funny little fat snake. That,
But apparently you don't want to like be faced with one. Like
no, I
he'll,
think they'll mess you
he'll
up.
bite you or something.
Yeah, but the director said that he found one on the side of the road when he was a kid. He was walking home from school, and he said he can remember poking it with a stick when he
And
was
it-
like 7 years old.
He didn't. It didn't. It was dead already.
No, I think it was daytime, and they don't like the daylight. So I think maybe it was like blasted by the daylight, so it wasn't really able to
Interesting.
fight. So he was poking it with a stick or something.
What if he saw like? I mean, I would like to believe that the Tsuchinoko is real, but also,
I thought
what
about
if
it while I
he
was reading the
saw-
article. I was like, why not? Like, I'm gonna believe it. Why shouldn't I?
what
Just
if he
'cause
saw
no
a
one's ever
snake
seen it.
that had eaten like?
Yeah,
this,
he
like
might
a
have.
massive groundhog, and so it was like this like massive snake, and
Yeah.
it couldn't move because it was just like full.
I mean, he
of,
could have. They do say it's shorter than a snake, so it's shorter and fatter. So I feel like if you saw something really big, you'd be like, oh, it's not the Tsuchinoko.
I'm gonna go find one.
Yeah, they're in the mountains. And apparently there are like fields. They had a picture of a field where there was like a stake stuck in the ground that was like, watch out for the Tsuchinoko because he's out here.
I'll get you.
Yeah.
Well,
What's yours?
mine is Gyoratsu, which is a parade or like a
Oh.
procession. Could also be a queue, like a line. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's in honor of the parade we saw.
That's fun. So a little Gyoretsu.
Yeah. And next week we're gonna talk about we're traveling again this weekend for your last bike race for a while.
Yeah, potentially. Could be my last bike race for quite a while. So
Yeah.
it'll be
We're-
fun to
we're
go
going-
do that. And we're going back to Gunma.
Yeah.
So not like anywhere super exciting. But we're staying in a
I mean,
new hotel.
it's exciting. It's just not anywhere new. So
Yeah.
Gunma is a very pretty area. So
Yeah. It's very beautiful there.
yeah.
So yeah, we'll be doing that.
Tell you guys about that next time.
What else we got going on?
Absolutely
we're going to take
nothing.
a test this week for our Japanese ability.
Yeah, that's
for
true.
a potential Japanese class.
We're gonna try to
situation.
get back into Japanese class. The like international, I forget what the IFIE stands for, but
IFI
yeah,
in the Rifare.
it's an international group that's in this building that's next to the station, and they support foreigners like us, and so
Yeah.
they offer a
It's
pretty
very friendly.
cheap. Yeah, they offer a very cheap class, Japanese
It's
class.
just at inconvenient times. Like if you have a normal 9 to 5 or like a
Yeah.
standard job, the classes are kind of at inconvenient
yeah, because their
hours.
evening class starts at 5, I think.
Yeah, so even then it like starts where maybe if you live like right next to the building,
You could run over.
yeah, like get there pretty quickly.
Yeah, they do have
We're
some
gonna do
weekend
that.
classes.
What else we got going on this coming week?
I don't think anything else.
Nothing exciting. I'm gonna have my panel so I can talk about what kind of questions I got asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just hanging out, having a good time here in Japan.
Well, that's enough rambling, I think, for the day.
Okay.
We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.